So when a fashion brand throws around a word like sustainable, what are they even talking about? I mean, we see it everywhere, right? Claims about being green, eco-friendly, conscious. But how much of that is real, measurable action? And how much is just, well, good marketing? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and figure out how to find the truth behind the tag. And that's really the heart of the problem, isn't it? If one brand tells you they saved 1 million gallons of water, and another one says they launched a new organic collection, who's doing better? You can't really compare them. It's like apples and oranges. And without a common yardstick, it's pretty much impossible to hold anyone accountable. Look, to compare anything fairly, everybody has to play by the same rules and use the same tools. You need a single, universal ruler that works for every single company, whether they're massive or just starting out. Only then can we really start to see who's making real progress and who's just, talking the talk. Well, it turns out that ruler actually exists. It's called the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, or SASB for short. And this isn't some small activist group. This is a serious, globally recognized framework that is totally changing how companies have to report their impact. The best way to think about SASB is like a common language. It creates one consistent way for all these different companies to talk about what they're doing for sustainability, and most importantly, it's a language that investors and you can actually understand. It lets you make those direct, apples-to-apples comparisons we were just talking about. So what exactly are we talking about here? Well, the SASB framework has 77 different rulebooks, and each one is tailor-made for a specific industry, from tech all the way to apparel. But the key phrase here is financially material. This isn't about fluffy, feel-good statements. It's about getting companies to report on sustainability issues that could actually hurt their bottom line. It makes this a question of financial risk, not just a PR move. Okay, but before a brand can even begin to measure something complicated like water pollution or carbon emissions, SASB says they have to start with something much, much more basic. They just have to count. They need to measure the pure scale of their operation. And this is called the activity metric. Okay, now look at this slide because this is wild. For the entire apparel, accessories, and footwear industry, the single most important starting number, the foundational metric, is this. How many Tier 1 suppliers do you have? And how many suppliers do you have beyond Tier 1? That's it. It all starts with just 2 numbers. But believe me, these 2 numbers change everything. It seems almost too simple, right? But this is the absolute non-negotiable first step. A brand has to be able to count up and then tell the world exactly how many factories and partners are in its supply chain. Without that basic number, any other claim they make is just built on quicksand. So what do these terms Tier 1 and beyond Tier 1 actually mean? To get it, you gotta understand what a modern supply chain looks like. And the best way to picture it is as a giant pyramid. Right at the very top, that's the brand itself, the company whose name is on the label. Right below them, you've got their Tier 1 suppliers, their direct partners. And then, underneath all of that, you have this massive, often completely invisible base of the pyramid, the suppliers beyond Tier 1. And listen, these aren't just casual terms that brands can interpret however they want. Nope. The SASB standards have incredibly strict, very specific definitions for what counts as each tier, and that's what makes the data so powerful and, most importantly, comparable. So here's the difference in a nutshell. Tier 1 suppliers, those are the folks the brand has a direct contract with. They do business together, they send invoices, they transact directly. Suppliers beyond Tier 1 are one step removed. They're the suppliers to the suppliers. Let's make this super clear. Your Tier 1 suppliers are basically the finished goods manufacturers. Think of them as the factories that do the cut and sew, the ones that literally assemble the t-shirt or stitch together the jeans you buy. They take all the pieces and make the final product. This is what most of us picture when we think of a factory. And this is where it gets really fascinating. Beyond Tier 1 is like the hidden part of the iceberg. This is the massive, sprawling world of mills that weave the fabric, the dye houses that color it, the tanneries that process the leather, even the farms that grow the actual cotton. So many of the biggest environmental and social problems in fashion happen right here, in this hidden network that, for years, brands claimed they couldn't see. So why all this fuss about just counting? Why does this one number matter so much? Because that simple act of counting is the first real step towards accountability. It forces a brand to actually know who they're working with. Here's the magic trick. Knowing the total number of suppliers allows for something called normalization. It means you can take a massive, abstract number, like a company's total carbon footprint, and divide it by the number of suppliers. Suddenly, you have an average, an impact per supplier. This is how you can finally compare a mega brand with 2,000 suppliers to a small company with just 50. It completely levels the playing field. And that requirement to report suppliers beyond Tier 1, that is an absolute game changer. It forces a brand to map out its entire network. It makes them look past their direct partners and actually figure out who is really making their stuff, all the way down to the farm level. It shines a bright light into the deepest, darkest corners of the supply chain. In the end, it all boils down to this one simple, powerful truth. You cannot manage what you do not measure. You just can't. You can't fix your environmental impact or guarantee fair labor if you don't even know who works for you or how many of them there are. Measurement has to be the first step. And that's the question I want to leave you with. The next time you see a brand making a big, bold claim about sustainability, just ask yourself, do they even know these two basic numbers? Because if a company can't tell you how many suppliers it has in Tier 1 and beyond, how can it possibly truly know its impact on the world?